Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be the Position 4 tier list for patch 7.33c, and as always, I get my information from the Trends tab, from Dota Buff Statistics, Dota 2 Pro Tracker, the Pro Games, all that kind of stuff. I look at all the stats, I mash everything together, give my take based on my experience in pubs, and we're supposed to generally be making kind of a pub tier list for your average, above average pub, not necessarily for like 10k or the best people, although they do establish the meta. We're adjusting things a little bit based on that. So like some of the really good heroes for high MMR might not be that great at lower MMRs, and I take that into account as well. So without further ado, let's just jump into the S tier. So first tier is going to be Techies. This hero is extremely annoying and extremely good now. They buffed it a bunch in 7.33, I believe. They just changed around what this hero does. And now, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is you don't have to get the shard, and you automatically stun now with Blast Off. That's like a huge thing. You have a stun, which is huge. They've recently changed, like, it wasn't 7.33, I think. It was like a few patches before that. Yeah, it was almost like a year ago, I think now. They changed like how Techies worked all together, and they gave him like this taser and stuff. Yeah, it was like a while ago. And so I think he was like semi-viable then since that happened. But now, because they just gave him the automatic stun on the blast off, that's really, really good. And then actually his Ags is just like broken. This thing is insane. So if you do end up getting to that point where you get the Ags, it can like be game winning, just so you put it at your base or whatever. If they just go in and they don't know what's happening, it just kills everybody. But this hero does ridiculous amounts of damage. I think they buffed damage on the hero as well. It's really, really annoying in the lane now as well, because it has insane range, and because it's universal hero, you can just like get a ton of damage. I think they increased the overall right click damage of the hero to begin with, and now you're clicking from pretty far range. Your attack speed's not great, but you're clicking from really far range. You're actually significantly like harassing the enemy, where before it was just like tickles and it didn't mean anything, where now you're harassing the enemy a ton. You have this that you're just throwing at them that does significant damage. At any moment you can just jump in and stun, and like your offlaner can follow up. It's crazy how much this hero does, and it scales really well. You can like solo pick people off. You have a ton of usefulness in team fights. Like this thing cannot be underestimated, especially against heroes that like don't have a dispel or something like that. Carries, especially like against Slark or something like that, it's not that great, but obviously then, you know, all these spells do damage through his ultimate. So it just feels like this hero has a little bit of something for every matchup, for everything, and does insane amounts of damage. And that's kind of what we're going to be seeing here for the 4 list, is just like damage. A lot of these heroes do insane damage. Yes, they stun, but it's also a lot of extra damage too. Bounty Hunter, they changed up a little bit of how this hero works in the last patch. They gave his stun now on his Shadow Walk versus stun on Shuriken Toss. And this is kind of like the Legion Commander thing that they did, where they changed up how the spells work, or not necessarily like anything fundamental about the spells in terms of like what his kit does, but just like which spell does what. I think that's really good, because this used to slow, and although that was good, it wasn't great, and this used to stun. And it was one of those where you never knew like what to max out. Like Greedy obviously plays players, and the greedy way to play was maxing Janata, and that's like an offlane core thing. But like you kind of would want to do that if you were really greedy from the forward position, but it didn't feel good. So people maxed this out because you're like spamming it to do damage, and it's stunned too, so you could cancel TPs and all that kind of stuff. But then this obviously you want to like move around, but you just wouldn't get that much. Now it's really good, because Shuriken Toss is just like bad. It's just bad. I mean, it doesn't feel good now, because all it does is slow. Yes, it does a little bit of damage, but you're not just going to be like spamming it. So really, you just want to get Shadow Walk and Janata, which is perfect. And then this is like later on in the game. If you get Ags, then you can spam this and it hits a bunch of people. That is good, and it is good to slow people, but the slow is like pretty short. Slow duration 3.35. It's like really bad. So the spell is just not good anymore. So we pretty much just take these two, and that fixes the hero. Then you can eventually, I think with the shard, right? Yeah, you can get the shard, you can cast this on allies, and you get 2 of these, so it's like you can double stun people. You're also doing a lot of damage. The other big thing with a lot of these supports now that you'll see, and I'm kind of mentioning it now for the first time, but a lot of these new items, or like items that are like smaller for supports, have been buffed. So there is, I'm always going to forget what that item is, the new one, the Pavis or whatever, however you pronounce this, is really good. And then the medallion and the solar crest also really good for supports. So there's all these like little items that they can buy now, which really help, even phylactery as well. So there's like these little items that supports can buy that just help them like kill other supports or like do damage even to cores or just slow people and all this like weird annoying stuff. And he's one that really benefits from that with the phylactery or even the medallion and the all these little things. You can even get the Pavis if you want on this hero. Like you can get it on almost any support these days, and so that really helps. And then having this be the first spell that you can get and you can just run around stunning people and being super annoying just really helps. Then also the fact that you're kind of stunning out of invis with Janata also helps as well, because it's like before you would kind of like hit them with that, or you would like hit them and this would go off, but it would just slow. And it's just like this whole combo of not that great. Now Bounty Hunter feels way more annoying to play against, where you just walk in, you hit them with this, and now they can't really like respond. But before you would come in, you would hit them, but then they could turn on you, where now they can't turn on you because they're stunned for a while. So that's really good. So all these things combined to make Bounty Hunter really good, but he still has a weakness where if you're not snowballing, if you're not getting track kills, if you're just sitting in the back and tracking people, he can feel completely useless. So just keep that in mind. Next, we have Clinks. I'm not actually sold on Clinks being a support. I kind of don't like that it's a support. It kind of feels annoying, not only on my the enemy team, but also my team. It's just one of these heroes that you're like trying to play carry from the 4 position. And don't get me wrong, that's cool. I like the idea in terms of like, I mean, it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It is good. That's the thing. It's very, very good. Like you're spamming this spell, this Tar Bomb in lane. You harass everybody out of lane. Like they cannot freaking lane. Like it's just, you can't lane against this. If you get hit with Tar Bomb, you can't dispel it, which is also insane. I mean, it says dispellable, yes, but like I don't know if it's broken or just it's like only strong dispels or what, but you just like legit can't dispel the thing. And he's hitting you for ridiculous damage with this. He's slowing you. It's insane. I mean, it's almost like a Bat Rider in a way. Yes, you can buy stick, but the stick doesn't really outweigh the amount of damage you're getting hit with when he hits you with this Tar Bomb. And he can like secure his CS, or he can secure some levels, some CS with the Death Pact and all that kind of thing. And then you just like later on build into damage, and this hero's just running around like a fourth core doing ridiculous damage, which is cool and good in a way if you're playing it and stomping. But it also has its weakness where it doesn't do anything else. That's the thing. It doesn't really stun, doesn't do anything other than just kind of like scout a little bit and then do damage. So if you're not just going straight damage build, you don't really do anything, and that can kind of hurt your team in a lot of ways, because sometimes the 4 is relied upon to like do some initiation, some saving, some damage in addition, but it's just like there's usually stuns and things going on other than just damage, but this is like straight up damage. So I would say it's like, obviously you're going to first pick it, because you're first picking the support. So it's kind of up to your cores to not just pick only damage and have like no stuns in the game if you pick this hero, but just that's why don't like it 100%. I'd rather them just like make it a core, but hey, it is what it is. It's very good. You can go like Medallion, you can go Phylactery, you can go Deso, you can go basically anything to do a ton of damage with this hero, which it feels good. I mean, it's, if you're able to get your items and you have this 4th core, you just like are unbeatable, but it can be countered. Next, we have Spearbreaker. I talked about him as an offlaner, I believe, because he is, I think he was S tier there as well. He's just broken because they buffed like every part of the hero. They just took all the numbers other than the bash, quote unquote, other than the bash, even though the bash, I swear, is broken. It's not 17%, but they took all those numbers, they just made them even better. And so this hero's just really good now. It just does all the same things that Spearbreaker has always done or has done for the last few years, and just does them really well. Is super annoying, does a lot of control. It's like, in this skirmishing meta where there's like, low cooldown spells are really valuable, he's really good at that. But then if you aren't skirmishing, people are trying to split push because the map is so big, you can like really hunt them down. This is one of those heroes that's super valuable for hunting people down, because it's so much harder to do that now since the map is so much bigger, and there's all those reasons that make this hero really good. You can gank mid, do all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of offlaners that are really self-sufficient with Vanguard being good. So now this hero, doesn't necessarily need to stay in the lane with the offlaner, can just go gank mid, and that's also very, very viable and very good right now. So that's Spearbreaker. And last we have Nyx. I think this is like, this hero is the hero that I would rather pick instead of like Clinks, because Clinks is like straight up right click kind of doing damage as a core or as a 4. And Nyx is like the opposite, where this is all about spell damage, and you have a stun and you are super annoying with your control, but you're also just doing ridiculous amounts of damage. Like you're buying Dagon 5 and stuff. And Like, I think I played a few games ago, I played with a Nyx that was 4, and he was just running around like one-shotting people. Or I played against the Nyx, and it was insane. Like, I had 75% mana, and then he would just hit me with his, like, I saw him, he hit me with his invis, I had like no mana. I'm like, I thought it was supposed to take 50%, it took like all my mana. I'm like, what's going on? He can kill a carry from full to 0 for the first like 30 minutes of the game, even from 4 position. First of all, the mana deletion is ridiculous. And then the Mind Flare being 4 seconds and all the other stuff to combine, dude, it's just crazy with the amount of damage this guy can output. It's just absolutely psycho. That's pretty much what you do. You just run around, solo killing people, and then even in team fights, like, you can team fight really well too. So that's Nyx, completely broken hero right now. So that's the S tier heroes, all very, very good. We see Invis heroes are pretty good. And it's like, that's the thing, Invis heroes that like to be on the outskirts or just like gank people are good because there's not as many sentries. But Invis heroes like Sand King, they're kind of like bad. Or even like Ricky, where it's like you're kind of just like going in and it's like one location that the fight is happening and you're sandstorming, you're going in as Ricky, it's like bad. Where these heroes like kind of they go in and out. So that's why this guy too, it's like his Invis is just a thing for him to scout and gank, but there's not enough sentries. So the dust doesn't really, any Invis hero where dust doesn't really matter for that Invis hero, they're going to be good. And so that's kind of what we see here. Next, we have A tier, Rubik. It's just a solid hero. I don't think there's anything special about Rubik that like made this hero way better. I think it's just that like with all different kinds of spells, with spells getting buffed, I think just as everything gets buffed, this hero just gets better and better. Like, you're just always going to be able to pick Rubik and have a decent game if there's decent spells that you can steal, and there's almost always going to be decent spells to steal. And I don't think there's anything crazy that makes this hero better than it was before in the sense of like, oh, there's some new thing, like, you know, the shard, it's still the same telekinesis that it was. The Ag Scepter is still the same thing. Like, all these abilities pretty much do the same thing. I mean, spell amp, cast range, all that kind of stuff, it's all the same. It's just very good. And I also think because, like I said, same thing with like Spearbreaker, with the fact that the offlaners are so self-sufficient, you're just like this extra little thing that you can just do whatever you want. You can go mid, you can just harass them, be annoying. You're not like relied upon for your stun a lot of times because you have these stunning offlaners, that kind of thing. Next we have Pugna. Pugna's just very good at like healing people. I mean, I think it's just kind of like broken right now with the heals. I've seen it just be one of these things where, for instance, like a Legion, it's very good against a Legion commander, which is like a broken hero right now, because not only are you making one of the heroes in the duel not able to attack or be attacked, you're also just like healing the people that they go on. And that can be very valuable against something like Nyx, against a lot of these single target like initiation skirmishing type things. And this hero, you can just like skirmish off cooldown. There's like no high cooldowns on the hero. So it can be really, really good in that way. It also has high attack range, high movement speed, can be very annoying to lane against as well. Marana, just kind of like an overall decent hero, another one that's universal, so has kind of just become... It's always been a decent support, but now, and I think it's always been like overpowered in pubs because you just press R later in the game, you get like free smokes, and now with not as many sentries, that's like a huge problem. Yes, it is countered somewhat because it's your whole team by dust, but like whatever, like who cares, honestly. It's more about like the surprise factor. And then because you're a universal hero, you can just do insane damage. Like, you can kind of carry from the 4 position and then do all the things that Marana has always done with the arrow and all that stuff if you have good setup. Dark Willow. I don't know. I'm not a huge Dark Willow player. I don't really play her at all. I've only played like a few games, if at all. I mean, I don't even have a little thing under there. I just never play Dark Willow. I don't see her a lot, to be honest, but I just see that her win rate is good. Her win rate's like very, very high. She's not picked a ton, I think, but her win rate is very high. I don't necessarily know why. So this is like, sometimes I'm just not sure. I think it's just like an okay support. It's just like you can do a lot of damage. I think that's the thing about this hero is like your stuns are not reliable. You're more of like a damaging support from the 4 position. But if we see, that's like all that's happening here. I mean, yes, this guy does control a lot, of course, but we're seeing that control from the 4 is not like as important as this like straight up damage. I mean, all these guys are just like doing insane damage, and that's just Dark Willow. So I think that's why she's good, is because Dark Willow is this kind of just damage 4 position. Earthshaker also does a lot of damage, but does a lot of control as well. Is more like a Spearbreaker in the sense that yes, you do have control, but you are very much a damage support. There's also a lot of like illusions these days. People are buying Manta a lot with these universal heroes. The illusion heroes are pretty good, so Earthshaker's always going to be kind of viable in that sense, but I don't think there's anything new or different about him. Bat Rider's just a universal hero that's broken in general, so he's just good as a support. Like, you could just play him as a support and do almost exactly the same thing you do as if you're a core. I mean, yeah, you're not probably buying Vanguard and stuff like that. I mean, maybe you are, but still, it's just like the same hero, and it's just all the numbers on the hero are broken. I feel like this hero is fundamentally broken in the sense that it's either like A or S in like 5 different positions, or it's just like D tier, like never pick it. Then we have Venomancer. Same reason that Venomancer was good offlane, is good as support. I think he's probably better as a support. I think in the offlane he was like B tier. He's just really good now because, like I said before, you don't have to self-sacrifice, and I feel like you can control a lot more. You're way more annoying with your new ultimate. You also have your old ultimate if you want to get it. Yes, you need farm, but still, I mean, you do all the same things Veno does. You also have these self-sufficient offlaners, like I've always talked about. In this hero, it's like you're not relied upon for the stun. You do a lot of damage. You're very annoying. The self-sufficient offlaner doesn't necessarily need you, but it's just an added benefit that makes you and the Legion, or you and the Axe, or you and the whoever just like so hard to deal with. And that's just like a really fundamentally good thing from the 4 position. So that's A tier. Next, we're going to go B tier. I think Pudge is best in this position, 4. And I think it's like the best that he's been at 4 in a long time, because he was a core like the last patches. Now they made the hook better, but they made some of his other spells worse. And so he is the best at 4 now of any of his positions, and he's better than he's been for a long time at 4. But he does similar Pudge things as always. Keeper of the Light is good because heroes like Pango, Double Swashbuckle, heroes that just like get extra mana, like Medusa, it's always good to give them mana. There's just like some heroes that this hero pairs with really well. Otherwise, I don't think it's that good. So it's just kind of like a pairing thing, but when you do pair it with the right heroes, it can be very good. But it is more of a coordination thing. So for this kind of a list, it maybe is more appropriate for like C tier, but hey, it still works. It's still pretty good. That's Keeper of the Light for you. Skywrath, another high damage one. We see a lot of high damage, not as much control. You can go for control with a Rod of Atos, but high damage. The other thing is with a lot of these like high damage things, I kind of already mentioned it, but I can say it again, is that with like the amount of farm on the map and all this stuff, and with these new items that you're allowed to buy that are like these small items that supports can get that can be very defensive or very helpful for the team, it feels like, yeah, you don't have a support that stuns, but he does a lot of damage, but he can get items real quick, and then he can buy like a defensive item for you or two. You know, he can buy a medallion if he needs to. He can buy a Rod of Atos if he needs to. He can buy that shield Pavis thing if he needs to. It just makes it this other avenue that allows these heroes that do a lot of high damage already to like have other impact in the game other than just damage. And so that's with Sky, I think that's like quintessential, that you're buying Atos, which you usually always did, but it's just something that's happened with a lot of these heroes. Like with Clinks, I think that's a perfect example of like he's buying like medallion and stuff, which is kind of like a useful item for the team. Next we have Earth Spirit. If you're an Earth Spirit player, he's pretty good right now. Nothing special to say about him. Does all the same things Earth Spirit has always done. He's just like kind of middle of the road, not bad, not good. Clockwork, I think, has like been on the up and up. He's kind of on the rise, but he's just like not there yet. I mean, there are games that are really good where you can just like stomp with Clockwork. I've seen people even go for like Orchid and stuff and just own people. And it's just sometimes, you know, you have these ranged laners that are just like owning you, or like you can't even walk up. It's like, can you walk up in the laning stage and just like kill people with battery assault? If you can do that, it's going to be a good game. If you can't, it might be pretty bad because you're not going to snowball. You're not going to get those items like you maybe used to, even though he is better at farming now. Silencer can be pretty annoying with the right clicks, kind of like Silencer always has been. I think the combo of like a year or so ago, they buffed the combo of the hero with the, you know, when you use both of his spells together, it does a ton of damage. That's still the case, still very good. I think it's just one of those heroes that's similar to all these other heroes where it does a lot of damage and then it can buy items to make up for not having stuns, and then the ultimate's always kind of going to be good. That's just what this hero does, but then it's able to do more and more as a support with new items and stuff like that. Dawnbreaker, just like an average okay hero. She just still, I mean, you don't really see her as a support, but when she is played, the percentages say that her win rate is pretty good, so that's why I put her up here, but you don't really see her very much. You could probably put her in C just because she's pretty unpopular. And then Wind Ranger is like not good as a support. It's more of a core now, but it's just such a broken hero that you could still play it as 4 and get away with it. Like you could still do it. It's just not, I wouldn't recommend it, but again, if you did it, it's just like with these other ones, it's better to play like one of these other high damage ones, but again, it's like a high damage carry from the 4 position, so that's why it's B tier here for me. And then next we have C tier. Snapfire I think is pretty good. another universal hero, but the things that universal heroes get like in the support role are not as good. So that's why it's like for this tier list, there's not as many universal heroes like, oh, this is broken because it's universal, because you're not just straight up buying stats. Otherwise, just does the same thing Snapfire has always done. Monkey King is like okay. I don't really see very much of him, but he's like has an okay win percentage. It's not like completely terrible in the forward position, just probably not great. Marcy's fallen off a lot. Similar with Dawnbreaker, just falling off a lot. You just really don't see Marcy as much. It's okay. You can still pick it, but it's not great. Phoenix, I have seen stomp some games, and the win rate's okay. And with all the farm on the map and all this stuff and the team fighting, it can be a very, very powerful support. But long cooldown ultimate with all the skirmishing, that can feel bad. And it still has a lot of weaknesses. If you're like a good Phoenix player and you want like some hero to play to stomp with in pubs, I think Phoenix is a good one, but it's just okay. Gyrocopter, okay. Can feel good with the shard and the missile, but if that doesn't like work out for you, and sometimes you just feel like you feed and do nothing. That's Gyro in a nutshell, to be honest. But it's okay. It's still decent. And then lastly for the C tier, we have Medusa. I'm putting a Medusa down here, and I think I commented on it a little bit in the offlane video, but it used to be broken, and now it's just like people kind of realize that even if you buy this like snake build and stuff and phylactery, whatever, you can just like be ignored. Like they really just can ignore you, and yes, you're doing okay damage, and your laning stage is pretty good, and blah blah blah. And yes, eventually, if like it goes 40+ minutes, you're gonna get damage items and be like a 4th core. But again, we have all these other guys that are doing more of that, and this doesn't feel as good. And people just realize, oh, just ignore the Medusa if it's like offlaner support now. So I think people have just adjusted to the meta and understand what the hero does. Now, last of the semi-viable heroes, we have D. Tiny. That's just fallen off a lot. Just not as good. I think it got nerfed in the recent patches, you know, since it was like broken for like a year or two or whatever. So it just didn't see a lot of love, and where a lot of other heroes got buffed. Tusk, same thing. It was broken like 6 months ago. Got nerfed in the recent patches and has still not come back. Hoodwink is just at a weird spot. I think this hero like deserves some buffs. I don't think it's been like very good for a long time, honestly. I mean, it has a break, which is kind of cool. You can, don't get me wrong, you can be good with the hero. If you like know how to play Hoodwink, you can stomp with the hero. It can be good from the offlane, but it does feel like this weird, like, it does damage, it does a little bit of control, but it's not great at either. Where now, if it's all about control in a meta, Hoodwink's not great. We see now it's all about damage, you know, with these, but Hoodwink is still not great. With all these heroes that are good at damage, it's not up there with them. So it just doesn't do anything great. It just does everything like kind of mediocre. Shadow Shaman, Lion, all about stuns and stuff like that. They're just not in the meta right now. It's just not what they just melt to all these other supports. Like you have any other support like this on the team, and they're just like destroying these two heroes. And then these heal heroes are just not in the meta either. I think that the amount of damage that's coming through is just overwhelming for these two, and it just doesn't feel good right now to have heals other than like Pugna, who is just a kind of a different way of healing. It's like a team fighty heal kind of thing, where this is like, you know, you're just pairing with a guy, but the map is so big, it just doesn't feel like that relocation is as good, and then Enchantress isn't able to dominate as much. It's like this weird healing plus creep. I don't know. Enchantress is either like A S tier or like F D tier. That's pretty much how it always is. Same thing with IO. And then lastly, we have F tier. None of these heroes are really 4s anymore. Ricky's not a 4 since they changed the shard. Weaver hasn't been a 4 in a long time. Lena's not a 4, although people are trying to bring it back. When she was broken, she wasn't even a 4 when she was broken, so that's not a 4. Zeus, definitely not a 4. Now if they made this more of like the shard, more of like a right click. Sniper hasn't been a 4 in a long time. Probably could take him off the list, to be honest. And then Enigma is not broken anymore. So Enigma was only a 4 when it was broken, and now it's not broken. So now it's just not a 4. So just don't pick any of these or you're griefing. So that is my 4-position tier list. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.